I suppose CLANNAD started off doing a lot of traditional songs, particularly from the area. Although we used to sing lots of popular music, whatever was available or around at the time, particularly with harmonies, because we discovered that being a family, I suppose, the timbre in our voices and that blended very well together. So we loved doing that. But we did do a lot of research into our own traditional Gaelic songs. The CLANNAD sound, the way I see it, is it came from doing these traditional songs and basically putting our energy into the arrangements of the songs rather than, we didn't have to do any writing. So it was kind of all this sort of wonderful time we had of arranging and blending and using our voices kind of to put different feelings down. And I think in the sixth album we tried delving into, trying a little bit of writing, more the music side than words or anything like that. And on that sixth album as well, we used to do some Scottish Gaelic songs, and because there were great vocal songs, we used to do quite a lot of harmonies in them. And this is the song, I suppose, that Gerard Seymour, who wrote Harry's Game, heard this sixth album that we did, and he loved this particular Scottish Gaelic song and wondered if we could do something, could we use that or do something similar. And Kieran and Paul and my brothers and I went to one of our houses, and we just said, let's try and write something. And we wrote basically Harry's Game and sort of said, well, what do you think? And they loved it. And we were completely taken aback and really surprised at, the reaction and how people loved the sound, I suppose.
We were driving around Northumberland, Clive Ray and Peter in my Golf GTI, as I was very proud of this little vehicle at the time. And we were driving around, and I had playing the theme from Harry's Game. And there'd been some talk about who was going to do the music, and it was possibly going to be, I think it was Roy Budd, who did Black Beauty and various other things for Paul. And we were listening to these tracks from Harry's Game, and we all kind of looked at each other simultaneously, basically, and said, this is the kind of thing you want. You want something different, you want something mysterious, something edgy. And so that night in the bar, I think we were talking to Paul and said about CLANNAD.
CLANNAD, to me, were some of the most incredibly talented people I'd ever worked with. I'd heard them first when they wrote the theme music for Harry's Game, which was an English film about the IRA troubles in Ireland, based on a novel by Gerard Seymour. I met them, I was tremendously impressed. I felt they had exactly the right sound that we needed.
Paul, I think, took Magical Ring, the album Magical Ring, and experimented with putting some of the music onto some of the rushes. And I think he just loved the richness that it brought.
The music is haunting, it has that Celtic undertone, that mystic feel.
We were given, so much to look at. Continually we were sent rushes and continually we were sent scripts. And that's what I mean about, there was such a great feeling and family-wise in that way, because everybody was regarded as being important.
I would go to Dublin twice a year, and we'd go in a studio for 2 or 3 days, and they would do 30, 40 minutes of music per session, and I would then bring that music back and we'd lay it. It wasn't written specifically to picture. They'd see the cassettes, they'd get ideas, they'd go away and write tunes, which we then brought back and fitted.
Paul did allow us a huge space in not being too tight if he could avoid that at all times. He would just literally fade, try and keep the theme and fade it out rather than try and kind of push something in, which was, I mean, if there was a battle scene, you definitely had to have a time code on it. But that was great fun, because, I mean, doing part of the battle scene, I remember we had the grand piano open and a fork and a couple of other things, making noises. because we use our voices a lot as well, people mightn't realise that it's our voices, but we use them in different ways, and it might sound like an instrument. We were doing all sorts of things like that. But experimenting was just incredible. Before Herne the Hunter would appear, you would hear sometimes the music. And so we created themes. This was something that Paul Knight encouraged as well. And we all thought it was a great idea that we created themes for certain characters.
Why didn't you call out? Why?
He'd have killed you.
When we initially started, they wanted us in London because everybody wanted to know what was going on, and so that they could come in and hear what we were doing as we progressed. And there was this studio down in Soho, and that had a very, very heavy lock on it and a big, big iron door. And if you went out, you had to get one of the security guys to open it, and to come back in again, you had to knock so many times or whatever. And it was the most unlikely place to be doing sort of this kind of music. So it was thrilling for us when we did actually move to Dublin to conclude and finish the project, which was in Windmill. And it's lovely because it's down by the river there in Dublin, and much freer as far as at least you can walk out, and I mean the whole area is more friendlier and in that way, and it did help. I have to say it did help. But I always remember the very last night that we were there recording the very last song, which was Ancient Forest. And I was scribbling, I was even involved in scribbling words for that. And we were upstairs while Tony was still, mixing the second last song, and myself and Paul and Kieran were up frantically trying to find words and finishing it. And I think about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think I did my vocal on it. And by 4 or 5, we were sort of coming near completion, and by something like 7 o'clock in the morning, while staying up all night and just finishing and completing this this album, we went for an early breakfast to celebrate. We were really thrilled. I mean, we knew we had something special done, for sure, we did. That was just for the first 13 episodes. Paul came to us saying he was doing another 13 episodes and he wanted more material. So there are some things that we recorded after that weren't actually put on any albums. We did do something that he wanted some sort of a chant for a tribal thing that was happening in one of the scenes. And that was great fun because Paul was very much part of that as well, Paul Knight, with, him sort of encouraging this kind of, I want more harmonies, I want more of this, give me more of that, And we actually developed that song for the following album called CLANNAD, which is the Golden Castle. The fantastic thing about it was the freedom we did have and were given musically was really important. We weren't given any limitations. We weren't told you can't do that. We were always, if we had an idea and if we wanted to explore it, Paul was always on hand. Paul Knight was always on hand in having open ears and in listening to our suggestions all the time.
We built up a library at the end. We had a library of about 4 or 5 hours worth of CLANNAD music.
I mean, there was so much music in it. It was amazing, really amazing. There were some episodes, and I think there was like 22 minutes of music or something. It was quite amazing, but it really worked. It really did.
The editors became very expert at laying this. In the end, the series in some ways became more of an opera than a TV series. I mean, because we just fell so much in love with the music.
It was never suggested to do another album of the extended music we did. We did actually do quite a bit of it on stage, and when we, performed, when we had our concerts, there was always in the middle quite a long slot of Robin music that we sort of used to tie in together, and we used to include some of the newer bits as well. So I think they were recorded maybe live for a live album. When Paul Knight told us that the music was up for a BAFTA award for Robin of Sherwood, we were really excited because we thought it was fairly strong, but you can never be sure. Nobody really kind of, I suppose, warns you of that kind of excitement and adrenaline that you feel when you've achieved or won an award like that. It's really amazing. It was just incredible to receive a BAFTA for the music for Robin. This was really special. It was really, really special. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to share it with other people now as well, being able to see it again, particularly for my kids to be able to see it, because I still think that, it's one of those things that you can look at it and it's not so dated.
The music is, for me, again, one of those elements that if you'd asked the universe to bring all the right elements into the right place at the right time for a show, CLANNAD is one of them. It's a very powerful element within the show and made the show much better and richer and more mysterious and more enigmatic for the character of the music that they brought to it.